Morning. Welcome to all the parents that are in attendance here, and also welcome to those of you who are joining us on YouTube. We appreciate your time and attention coming here. Obviously, it's a big step, and it's an exciting time for you as parents as we delve into the world of middle school. My name is Justin Reynolds. I'm the principal at middle school. And we have a wonderful team who's going to be helping us out today. I do want to recognize our elementary team who has gotten your child this far in their elementary school career. So I see Mr. Gilmore, the principal, and of course Miss Natalie is your child's principal as well. And of course their team has been wonderful in preparing them and making sure that they're ready for that next step. So this is certainly a team effort here today. So you're not going to have to sit and listen to me talk all day, which is fortunate for you. So we do, as I mentioned, we have a wonderful team. We have myself, we have John Shofstall, one of our assistant principals here, Shen McGarvey, an assistant principal, our Dean of Students, Reagan Moore, and then your student's counselor next year will be Christina Demers. And then we have two heads of grade, and we're going to explain a little bit about more what they do and their role in middle school. We have Tanya Budakian and Emmett Brennan. So you're going to hear from a little bit from each of us all today as we get started. So a variety of topics that we're going to cover. And what I do want to say is this is not going to be the last time that you're going to hear from us. So yes, there's going to be a lot of information that comes to you today, but we are certainly open to answering any questions you have far beyond this meeting. This is just the beginning of our relationship together. So today, as we think about children coming in from elementary into middle school, just a quick show of hands. How many parents, this will be your oldest child coming into middle school? Your first baby coming in? Yep, perfect. I will say that I'm living that this year. My son is in grade 6 this year. I'm still standing. I know it's not all the way through, but it's still good. So how many of you have an older kid who's either in middle school or in high school? So new parents, if you look around, you can see that it's been done. People do survive, and it's okay. It will be okay in the end, I promise you. It seems like it's a big transition, but it's really these incremental steps along the way. So yes, middle school is that bridge where we have children that are growing up. They're starting to identify things within themselves. Who are they going to be when they grow up? They get into adolescence. You're going to see mood changes if you haven't already. Things are going to be a little bit different. They're going to function a little bit differently. The role as mom and dad, that drastically shifts at home as well. So a lot of changes happen during this time. I do want to say that, whenever we grow, anytime you want to grow at something, you have to go outside of your comfort zone. So that's what middle school is. It's a time for exploration, and it's a time to get to know who you are, what are your strengths, what are some areas that you need to grow in, what is something new that maybe you want to try. That is all a great time. It's a controlled environment in middle school to be able to do that, to be able to have kids push themselves. So I will encourage you as parents, as those opportunities come along, inevitably you're going to have, maybe some strife with a friend, or you're going to have going from essentially one teacher to now you're going to have 8 or 9 teachers. It's going to be some big shifts, and some of that responsibility can be pushed off of you and give that to your children. Because ultimately, what we're trying to do is we're trying to grow functional adults, right? So we need to be able to give them a little bit of responsibility. But that growth really comes from being a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, and that's okay. I've said this before, but those open lines of communication, that's going to be key. Obviously, especially at the very beginning, I think it took my son till about October, till he felt really comfortable in the middle school and the middle school schedule. It takes time, but we do have a big team that's willing to help. If you come across anything, if your kids need any support, we're going to talk about the levels of support that we do have. But please know, our door is always open. We want to make it a positive experience for you, a positive experience for our kids. Okay? On top of that, we're going to be doing this all in a new building, which is amazing. We're going to be just right across the football pitch. If you've seen it come across on Hesse Street, we were a little bit worried because we saw a lot of foundation being poured, but not a whole lot of walls. But in the last couple of weeks, I think they're up to the second floor now. They're finishing the structures for the second floor. So there's going to be another one on top of that. So it's going to match this building in height, not necessarily in size. So we're really excited for that to happen. Grade 6, you guys, you're going to have the opportunity to have your kids attend that new school all the way through, which is also a very exciting thing for them. So we're excited for that. So for this program, I mentioned that there are many steps along the way. Please don't, you don't have to take a picture. You're more than welcome to. But we will send these slides to you so that you have all of this information in your emails. But we're going to be talking about, obviously, this presentation today. We're going to be talking to your children. And then we're going to be sending home the information so that they can make course selections, which is a big change from elementary. They're going to have assistance from their teacher, their current teacher, as well as our administrative team. We're going to be down to support them to make those selections. We're going to have our Miss Christina go down to the classrooms and talk to each of the kids because, of course, there's some excitement around middle school, but there's also some anxiety about that too. So she goes in armed with frequently asked questions. She lets kids ask them any question, and there's a great dialogue that happens. We have a step-up day that we're going to be where we have the students come up to our floor. They're able to meet the teachers. They're able to kind of get an idea of what happens in each of the classes, which is also a very good thing and helps. And finally, we do have grade 6 orientation, which will take place just before the start of the school year. So this will be a really important date because obviously it's going to be in a new building. So it'll give students the opportunity to kind of get the flow, get the lay of the land, because most of the kids, obviously they know this campus, they won't know that one. So orientation will be really important in the upcoming year. So with that, I'm going to pass along to John.
All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about curriculum and thinking about classes that changes quite a bit, where each student has kind of their own path through the day, as opposed to moving with their class from one subject to the other. Thinking about the courses, the core courses are the ones that all of our students will be taking. Thinking about English, math, science, social studies, Arabic, and physical education. Every student will be taking those courses, and then Islamic, for any Muslim students, they'll have that put into their schedule as well. And then there's electives, and that's exciting for kids because they get to choose their electives within that, things that kind of align with their current likes. Obviously those change as time goes on, but right now they'll be able to have those choices. And you think about art, there's actually 2 art classes. There's like an art 6 and a photography class. Christina, I will try not to take very much of your stuff, but it's going to be very hard for me. So she's going to talk a little bit maybe more about that in depth later. But then there's the Spanish and French. There's band and choir. I don't know if you heard the students today. They were playing for you as you were coming in. Those are our band students, and you know, they're growing by leaps and bounds from beginning of the year till now. So that's great. We also have coding and robotics, and then also we have innovation in media. So a lot of technology stuff. You know, one of the big concerns for students is homework, and also 2 assessments as we think about that rigor increasing as they go from grade 5 to grade 6. And so the idea, and the research shows, and this is kind of what we try to stay by, Marzano says that it's like 10 minutes per grade level. So you think about 6th grade, we're looking at 60 minutes max per day. I would guess that if they have 60 minutes, that would be a rare occasion. Sometimes homework can get a little bit blurry, because if a student doesn't get their work done during the day, they may have some homework that other students don't have. So we really try to encourage them to use their time wisely. That way they don't have that homework. And so sometimes there can be some confusion in that, where kids are supposed to do their work during class and they don't necessarily remain as focused as sometimes we want them to be, and so it does go home. So there's that homework piece. And then formative and summative assessments. I love standard-based grading, and the reason for that is formative is really just a checkpoint. We like to call it a checkpoint, because we get to see where students are at as they're learning towards that summative standard assessment. And so formative, there is that assessment, there is that feedback cycle, feedback loop, as we're providing that feedback to students to hopefully get them to that level 3 or 4, or achieving in mastery. So again, we have standard-based grading, which is maybe different. I grew up with like a percentage model with A, B, C, D. They said there was F's, thank goodness I didn't get any of those. But thinking about that percentage base, that's not really what we're looking at. We're really looking at a standard-based grading, providing that feedback and growing them within that standard. And then we do evaluate that based on like a mastery, achieving, approaching, and developing. So 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're shooting for 3s, and sometimes students go beyond that with a 4, but typically we're in that 3 area. And then 2 is approaching, which is we're getting close to what that standard is asking. And then rubrics. You'll hear this a lot from your teachers. So we really utilize that rubric. That way, there's clear expectations for students in what they need to do or learn in order to reach that achieving mark. So again, rubrics, it's not a guessing game. I think when I was growing up, sometimes it was a guessing game of what you had to be able to do. Rubrics are very clear on those learning outcomes for students. Thinking about that parent, student, school relationship is really important for communication. That's something that I know has been done very well in the elementary, and we try to continue that as well into the middle school. And so one of the ways that we do communicate is through Google Classroom, and then also to PowerSchool. So you're able to see some of that feedback. You're able to see some of those scores within that. And it'll be important for you to have those conversations with your students as well. And if you're seeing maybe your child is not meeting the expectations that maybe you have for them, then you can always reach out to the teacher as well. And they're there willing to help and support your child as we grow. So technology, Miss Tara Frost is here. I told her I could do this slide, but if you ask any questions, I'd be sunk. So she is going to save you and I both. So you may know her because she does work with your child quite often.
Thank you so much. Yeah, amazing. So my name is Miss Frost, Tara Frost. I've worked with many of your children for 3 years now. And they use iPads in elementary school. They are incredibly well versed in iPads by the time they get to the end of 5th grade, and there is a transition into middle school. The transition from 5 to 6 can be a big jump, and that is why we do strongly recommend the purchase of a MacBook Pro or a MacBook Air, because we are an Apple ecosystem at DAA. That means AirDrop, AirPlay, the Apple Suite. We also have a discount through JTRS, who is our provider. I wonder if we can add that to the end of the slide. There was a flyer that we sent out last year. In terms of specs, as long as the laptop is I think it's 5 years. Yeah, 5 years. It can be updated to the latest Mac OS. So oftentimes we have parents who've used a Mac for a few years, and then they donate that back to their 6th grader as their first school laptop. That seems to work very, very well. I've gotten feedback from middle school teachers that say it is quite helpful to have an Apple device as they transition to 6th grade. Well, a lot of the stuff we do is based on the cloud. It's Google Classroom, et cetera, et cetera. It does just make that transition that much easier. that's it from me. Amazing.
You guys have heard of AppleCare, right?
Yes.
Buy it. Buy it. My son, I heard cries. I was in a meeting after school, and I heard a ah, and then I walk into my office, and he's hiding under my couch in the office. I'm like, Brock, what happened? He's like, I don't want to tell you. I don't want to tell you. I already dropped the laptop, and it already has a crack in the screen. So, long story short, I did buy the AppleCare, knowing my kid, and I was able to get that fixed pretty quickly. But it was literally the first week with his first laptop. So, if we had an old MacBook, we would have donated that to him, certainly.
All right, and then, yes, AppleCare. There's insurance for a reason, right? Thinking about students' responsibility for learning, there are some changes from elementary to middle school, but our teachers do an amazing job of supporting them through that. But as I like to tell our students, you know, you're going to get more freedom, but with that comes a little bit more responsibility. And you know, that's the same as in 5th grade as maybe in 1st grade. Hopefully they've had a little more freedom and they're able to handle that responsibility. Not all of them, but most of them can do that, and you've seen that growth. Thinking about time management, this is something that they're going to need to be able to do, and again, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but they're going to have 8 classes plus a crew class, and so they're going to have a few more things going on. They're going to have to organize that. We know, you know, the planner is very helpful, and so in getting them into a habit of doing that is going to be very beneficial. It also will help them with that time management piece. Each class takes time to make sure that they get stuff into a notebook. They make sure that they get their stuff into a planner. So again, those are really important steps that will help them be successful. I think we all do things that help us be successful. For me, it's a lot of Post-it notes, and so those are mechanisms that help us remember everything we need to. And then the other thing too is you thinking about that responsibility. If a student is struggling, and this will probably be a little bit of information or a conversation that you may need to have with your child. If they're struggling to advocate for themselves, to reach out to their teachers. You know, I think, you know, Dr. Reynolds talked about being outside our comfort zone. You know, I think all growth happens outside of our comfort zone. However, there's times where we need some assistance in getting through that. And so that's going to be an important piece for them. And that's going to take a conversation with you as a parent, you know, with your child about advocating for themselves. All right, we have our head of grades that are going to talk about the middle school experience.
Hi, thank you. I'm Tanya Budakian. I'm one of the heads of grade, and this is
Emmett Brennan. Nice to meet you.
We're going to talk you through the middle school experience from our perspective. So each grade level in middle school has 2 heads of grade, and we are responsible for the overseeing behavior, well-being of the students, and the crew classes, which is what we're going to talk about here. So what crew stands for, so each child will be put into a crew class. That's like a homeroom, if you think about it. So they're a little bit smaller than regular classes. They meet 4 days a week from Monday to Thursday, and that is the teacher who will help set them up in the beginning with a planner, with just getting settled in middle school. So crew stands for community, respect, excellence, and well-being. And those are the activities, those are the standards around which we do activities throughout the school year. Things that include building life skills, so which I'm going to talk about in a minute. We sort of, you'll see everything kind of overlaps as we go through, and hopefully I'm not going to step on what Emmett's going to talk about. I just want to add there.
I know John mentioned this as well, but crew is a really nice opportunity for the kids to work on their organizational skills as well. And I know he mentioned planners. They'll use their planners obviously for homework and for tracking their daily classes, and it's a nice opportunity for you as well to to check their planners at home to make sure they're on task and make sure that homework isn't or not being overloaded with homework, and yeah.
Right. I know when John was talking earlier about if they don't finish their work during school, we have little codes that we use, whether it was classwork or homework or unfinished work, so that like this you can get a better idea of, oh, actually, is my child getting all this homework, or are they just not finishing? It's a nice point of conversation. And that's also what we're here for, in addition to the crew teachers, is the crew teachers check planners every week, and they say, hey, I'm noticing you're going to the bathroom a lot in math class, or you're having unfinished work all the time in social studies. What's going on? How can we help you? That's what it is. It's just like an extended network of support for your children, so that they have that, they're not feeling like they're flailing, but that we're here for them, and that there are lots of adults looking out for them to help them be the best they can be.
And I think that's the main message we want to send out, is if your kid needs help, or if they need someone to talk to, as well as their teacher, we're there, whether it's during crew or in the hallways or after school or before school. It's a tough transition from grade 5 to grade 6, so if they need that helping hand, or if they need someone to talk to, or sometimes someone to remind them of the expectations, that's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for. I think we're going to do we take questions now, if someone has one? Oh, we'll keep going. We'll hold that thought. I'm like, don't forget it, we'll come back to you.
Just to give you an idea of communication, as well as that, there are bi-weekly newsletters sent out. They'll contain updates with subject updates or school-wide updates about maybe assemblies that took place, or projects that the students completed in certain subjects or in crew.
And yeah, with information from us, if there are any reminders. As I say, each crew is divided into, actually the whole middle school has color houses, and I know that was introduced this year, I believe, in elementary, where they have those t-shirts and the different color houses. We've had those for a while, so we have 6 color houses, same thing, they can get a t-shirt, and we have different opportunities throughout the year for the color houses to come together for competitions. Teachers can award color house points during our bi-weekly assemblies. We also have opportunities for either games, competitions, moments for them to earn color house points.
Absolutely, and all very competitive, as you know. Yes. But this year in particular, we began crew-led assemblies. So each crew or color house, or each crew room gets a chance to lead an assembly here in front of the rest of the grade, and it's really a worthwhile experience for the kids. You can see some kids really thrive, and some kids really learn from the experience. And
yeah, they enjoy being at some of them. You see, some of them, they just eat up the limelight. They want to be in the spotlight and help lead. And then for others who are maybe a little bit more shy, like they still are able to participate and help in ways behind the scenes, and that also helps them grow by starting this in 6th grade. You know, the idea is hopefully they just develop that confidence to be able to take a more maybe starring role or more leading role as they get older. I was just thinking, what else did we forget here?
In terms of other student opportunities, students have a chance to apply to be an ambassador, a student ambassador. Some of the responsibilities that they have, ambassadors have, include helping new students adjust to school, and the student council as well. We have some students on the student council who really run special days in the school, and
yes. Color house competitions.
Color house competitions, yes. And we have Week Without Walls. I guess it was recently, 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Students have a chance to spend a few days at a local trip in grade 6, where they might undertake activities, or they might go to an art trip, and we had obviously international trips in grade 7 as well. But I think those trips are a great learning experience for kids, learning to be away and learning those organizational skills, and having that independence is really worthwhile.
I think the other thing too, especially coming from grade 5, where I know they know a lot of, this school I think does really, I've been at this school I have a 10th grader and a 7th grader, and my 10th grader was here in KG1, so we've been through the whole, been through this school for a long time, and I think they do a really great job of mixing kids. So while you still have your little group of friends that tend to follow you through different grades, it's very good, even though it's quite a big school with a lot of classes. Kids know each other, and they're very welcoming about new students, but it still can be a bit of a transition. I think coming from that one little grade 5 classroom, then moving to middle school where they're mixed with everybody else, and I think Week Without Walls is another one of those, the sports teams, all the other opportunities to get to know different kids and interact, because that's a skill we all need in life, right? That's kind of what Crew's also all about, is life skills. Do we have anything else?
I know we skipped through a lot there, but all of the details we've shared are on these slides, so have a look through them, and any questions you might have, be sure to ask.
Oh, I know. I'll add one more because I don't know if it's coming up, if we talked about it, but one of the things that we do look at in all of the classes, especially in Crew, but also their core classes, are approaches to learning. So I don't know if you have this in elementary because I can't, oh you do. Oh, so you know. I'm not telling you anything new. So it's just good information about how they're approaching their work. And again, as we said, middle school can be a time that's challenging for behaviors, so it's nice to know like everybody's kind of looking out for and supporting your children as they learn to navigate and change through their growth.
And it's nice, you often have students who achieve, do really, really well academically, but they still have those steps to take, whether it's self-management or collaboration, and it's nice to see that recognition at times,
yes.
when students take that step in improving.
And I'll say, I know that's also something we try, especially as we get through parts of the year, to recognize kids who have really done a good job at improving working on their approaches to learning. You know, they don't have to get 4s in it, but we like to recognize everything, any effort that's being made. So that's what we're here for. So thank you. We're also available all the time for questions.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shane McGarvey, and I am the other assistant principal along with Mr. Shofstall. Let me just begin by thanking Mr. Gilmore, Ms. Salome, Ms. McNeil, and the whole elementary team for all that they have done to prepare your child for the next step of their educational journey. And we're also very grateful to you as parents as well for choosing us as DAA Middle School for that next step in that particular journey. So today I'm just going to speak about student well-being and some of the things that maybe you can do as parents to support your students through this very important transitional time on their educational lives. It's great to see some familiar faces here as well. Dr. Reynolds mentioned them as the survivors, so I'm sure that by the time, in 3 years' time, that you will all be survivors of the student middle school experience. So we're very appreciative that you've chosen us. So how do we promote and monitor well-being in the middle school? So coming from elementary school, we realise that your child spends a lot of their day with one particular teacher. Okay, so in that first week of middle school, what we try to do there is we try to have your child spend a lot of time with their Crew class. Okay, so to make that transition that little bit smoother, so that they understand, okay, I'm going to this class every morning for the first block, so I know where to go. It'll help me get prepared for the day and the rest of the week ahead. With that as well, what we try to do in those Crew classes is, Ms. Budakin had already mentioned it, there is develop those positive relationships in a smaller setting, okay? So that there's that one adult in the building that your child will know, okay, I can go to my Crew teacher, they'll be able to help me out with this. I know where their classroom is, I'll go there, they'll help me out. So that's one of the things that we try to do in that first week in particular. And frequent communication between teachers, heads of grade, assistant principals and counsellors. So we talk to each other all the time. We have grade level meetings every week, and they are led by our heads of grade, and we discuss their student supports that we need to put in place, what's working well, what can we do to be more proactive in supporting our students as well. So there's a lot of communication that takes place within the middle school team to ensure that we're catering to your child's needs. Our heads of grade had already mentioned there the Colour House point system. That is there to encourage positive behaviours for our students. So encourage and celebrate, because that's something that we find is very important for our middle school students. When they do something well, it's great to recognise it, no matter how small that it is. If it's keeping a door open for somebody, there's an opportunity there to give Colour House points to celebrate those positive behaviours and reinforce those positive behaviours. Dr. Reynolds had mentioned as well that open door policy for students, whether it's for an administrator or for our counsellors or heads of grade, we're always there to help and support at any time. Proactive communication with parents. So whether that be in our spots, grade level newsletters, or whether that be from a classroom teacher or administrator, just to have that lines of communication open. We do that very regularly with our families. Regular well-being surveys. This is particularly pertinent for our grade 6 students. Okay, so those first couple of weeks can be a challenge. And so we have Ms. Demers will share the wellbeing survey those couple of weeks. We'll check the data on that and we'll see, okay, what students do we need to talk to individually and what interventions do we need to put in place to support the whole year group. Okay, so what are the trends that we're seeing there to make sure that we're supporting our individuals and our grade 6 cohort as well. Student shout-outs, so in our grade level assemblies, in our newsletters, in spots, we try to celebrate the great things that our students are doing either in campus or what they're doing with their extracurricular activities as well outside of school. We have a student that's currently in grade 6 now, that's he's written 2 books. It is absolutely amazing, and we try to do all that we can to support and to encourage those students. So your child support team. So some of this has already been mentioned, but I'll just go through it quite briefly. So your classroom teacher, they prepare engaging and challenging lessons for your child using formative and summative assessments. We mentioned the proactive communication there, so one of the things that we like to do there is if there is a concern or a success that needs to be shared, your child's classroom teacher will do that. If your child is receiving a 1, which is approaching on your standards-based grading, that is communication that will go home to his parents and say, listen, there's a bit of a challenge there with accessing the curriculum. What can we do collaboratively to ensure that your child is where they need to be? Heads of grade, they've already mentioned some of the things that they do there. They lead those crew assemblies. They create the grade level newsletters. They lead the grade level teacher discussions on student support there. So they do so much in supporting your student on their journey. You as parents, we see it as a partnership with you in ensuring that your students' needs are catered to. One thing that we do ask of you is that you trust us and to understand that we're doing all that we can to support your child. Okay, we both want the same thing for your child. That's what we do there. As middle schoolers, what we try to get them to do as they are growing more independence is to advocate for themselves. There will certainly be times for you as parents where you feel that you need to jump in and you need to advocate for that, and we fully support that, okay? So we see that as a partnership where we can work in collaboration to ensure that we are catering to your child's individual needs. Your crew teacher, they develop those positive relationships in a smaller setting. So we believe in developing the whole child, not just academically, and one of the places and one of the settings that we do that is in our crew lessons. Your counsellor, to put it quite quickly, they do absolutely everything. From the minute before your child joins us in middle school, until completion, they are there on every single step of the journey with your middle schooler. You'll have Miss Christina from grade 6 through to grade 8. So our counsellors go through the grade levels with our students, and they develop those very close bonds with our students, and just as importantly, with our families. And then you have the leadership team of Dr. Reynolds, Mr. Schofstall, myself, and Ms. Moore, who is our Dean of Students. We are there to support all of those different people and ensure that we are catering to the needs of your child. So what can you do to support? The first thing is to acknowledge and reward their efforts in school. It can be a challenge to be a middle schooler. They will have good days, they will have days that are not so good. So when they do come home, have those discussions with them. When they do something well, encourage them and acknowledge it. It's very important. Build resilience. They will have those difficult days, as I have said. They will need your guidance and protection, but they need to also make their own decisions and make their own mistakes. And the important thing here from our perspective is when they do make those mistakes, is that they use them as a learning opportunity so they do not make similar mistakes again. Foster that independence. In middle school, students should start to take ownership of their education and become self-advocates. So as I mentioned there, if there is an issue from an academic perspective in a math class, our suggestion is that your child goes to the math teacher themselves and advocates for themselves and has that discussion, okay, to try and work things out themselves. If then you as parents feel that it's still not where you want it to be, that's when you step in, and then you advocate for your child. Understand that your students will make mistakes and that they are those opportunities for growth, as I've already mentioned. Ask open-ended questions and encourage conversation. And believe you me, we understand that can be quite difficult with middle schoolers because their head may be planted in the phone. So please, as parents, make sure that you make that slice of time to have those conversations with your middle schooler, with your incoming grade 6 student, to see, okay, how are things going? What can we do to help? what's going well? Is there anything that you need help with? And then reach out to us if and when you feel that we need to support. Thank you. So I'll pass it over to Mr. Mayers and Dr. Reynolds. We're going to go through the course selection process.
Hi. Thanks for coming, everybody. I'm Ms. Christina. I'm the grade 6 counselor, or I will be next year. As Mr. McGarvey mentioned, the counselors in middle school, we move up with the grades. So actually, I'm the grade 8 counselor now. I've been with this group since grade 6 when they came in. So now I'm doing the transition. I will be with your children, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. And we just found it's a really nice opportunity, as was mentioned before, to get to know the kids really well. They get to know their counselors really well. It's just a great opportunity, just another thing that I think makes the middle school experience a little bit easier for them. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you today about course selection, about classes in grade 6. There's going to be a lot of information here. I don't want anybody to feel overwhelmed. Just a reminder, we are recording this presentation. We'll be including it as a link in a letter that's going to go out, we think, later today. So you'll be able to go back and revisit this presentation as many times as needed, or of course reach out to us if you have any questions. Okay, so basically I'm going to give you an overview of what course selection is like for grade 6. So basically, they don't get a whole lot of choice, but they will get more choice than they had in elementary. So I think it's still kind of an exciting time for them. So every grade 6 student is going to take the same core classes. Everybody takes math, English, science, social studies, PE, and everybody will be assigned a crew class. So that's the same for everybody. Grade 6 students don't need to choose these classes. They'll be chosen for them. Where they do get some choice, where the fun part happens, is they get to choose electives. So they'll get to choose 2 credits worth of electives. French or Spanish will count as an elective, so it's not a mandatory course in middle school, so that's a choice that you and they can make together. Okay, in addition to French or Spanish, we also have a host of other electives. Mr. Schofstel mentioned earlier, arts electives, innovation, technology, music, so there's quite a choice for them to make. Most of our electives are semester-based, which means there'll be 2, there'll be half a year, so they'll actually get to choose 2 in a year if they choose the half-year electives, and a few of our electives run all year long, so they just make that one choice for the year-long elective, and that's what they have for the whole year. Just a note at the bottom of the slide, our students taking Islamic education, they will still get to choose electives. They will have a slightly shorter list because they're going to need to take what we call paired electives for at least 1 credit. So that means during the week, when a child who takes Islamic has their elective classes scheduled, one time, instead of going to their elective class, they will go to Islamic. So we just need to make sure in the schedule that that works out, that we're able to alternate like that. This year, though, almost all of the electives are going to be paired with Islamic. So we don't see it as too much of a restrictive. I think only maybe the music, the band, and the choir, and French or Spanish are not paired. Okay? Again, I know this is a little bit confusing. This will be also explained to the students, and again, we're here to answer any questions at the end. Okay, so the process and how we get started in grade 5 with choosing courses for next year is that right here today, sharing information with parents. Tomorrow, in the afternoon, we're going to have an assembly for all grade 5 students. So they're going to come in the auditorium just like you are now, and we're going to give them a slightly pared down version of this presentation. Again, our main objective for the presentation for the grade 5 kids tomorrow is to get them excited about middle school and not to make them more nervous. We're really excited to have them, and we want them to also be excited to come up to middle school next year. So we are going to touch on courses and the classes they get to choose and the classes they will take, but we're not going to overload them with information. But the next step after that is we will be sending home with every single grade 5 student a worksheet. And on the worksheet, they will select what electives they would like to take. So you and your child can sit, look at the list of electives on the first page, decide together what they'd like to take, and they'll write it in on the worksheet, which is on page 2, just so they have it in writing and remember what they'd like to take, and then we're going to ask you to sign it. And they'll bring it back to their grade 5 teacher Thursday or Friday of this week. So the worksheets should be going home Wednesday. Okay, so look for those. And again, sit down with your child, pick the electives together. Just a reminder, you don't have to pick any other classes, just the electives. They'll write them down, you'll sign it, they'll bring it back Thursday, Friday at the latest. And then Monday, they're actually going to go in using their iPads to Power School. They're going to log in and they're going to click on those electives that they want. Their grade 5 teachers are going to be helping, but also all of the middle school staff that has been here today. We're going to be down on the 5th grade floor helping out. We're going to be popping into those classrooms, making sure every child knows what to do. If they have any questions, we're going to be there. And the good news is there is a deadline, but it's not till April 16th. So we have a lot of time to go in and make any changes. If your child puts art for their elective and then decides a week later, you know, I've really been more interested in music lately, maybe I want to try an instrument, no problem. They can keep going in again and again and again to Power School until that deadline and make those changes. But when that deadline comes, we can't go in anywhere and make changes. But as I said, April 16th, that's the deadline. We have quite a bit of time. Okay? And if there are questions from children, from parents in between, we're here to help. Okay, just a quick note about our schedule. It's a little bit different in middle school. We start the day at 7:40. We end at 2:50. We have 4 classes a day and crew. So up on the screen you'll see block 1, their first class of the day, runs from 7:40 to 9. And then at 9 o'clock there's a break. This is Monday to Thursday. They have about a 15-minute break. They'll stay in that block 1 class, they'll have a snack, they'll relax, they'll maybe look at, you know, whatever homework they might have to submit for the next class, review for a formative or a summative. It's their time. So they have that short break at the end of block 1, and they go to block 2, 9:20 to 10:40, and then they have block 3, and then after block 3, every day, Monday to Thursday, is lunch. Okay? Lunch is a little bit different in middle school. They get a little bit more freedom. They can go to the cafeteria. They can go down to the field. There's certain designated areas they might be able to go to in the middle school itself. And then they'll come back. Crew is after lunch every day, Monday to Thursday. It's easy to remember. Lunch and then crew. Except for the very first week of school. Mr. McGarvey mentioned we're going to have kids come to crew every morning, their first week of school, just as a way to ease them into the transition, make it a little bit easier for them. But for the rest of the year, this is the schedule. And then they're going to end the day with their block 4 class, and then they'll go home at 2:50. Friday, the schedule is up there. The classes are a little bit shorter. They're about an hour each, and there's no lunch, but there is a break. So they'll still get a break. It's block 2. So they still have that time to have a snack or just to relax, and then they are dismissed at 11:55. Okay. Not to confuse anybody, but this is the middle school schedule. Don't worry if it doesn't make 100% sense to you right now, and that's what we're going to tell the kids tomorrow as well. When they start doing it, when they start going to their classes, it will start making sense. But as easily as I can put it, we have a block schedule, so we have an A day and a B day. On A day, they're going to have a certain set of 4 classes. On B day, they're going to have the other 4 classes. So A day, they might have math, science, English, and an elective. That's every A day. On B day, they'll have the other classes, the social studies, the PE and health, etc. The A day and the B day schedules alternate. So if they start on an A day, they'll just go to the A day classes. And then the next day, Tuesday, they'll do the B day classes. And then the day after, back to A, and then back to B. So it just alternates. The tricky part is we have a week 1 and a week 2, just to make things fun. So week 2 is different, only in that instead of starting Monday on an A day, we start on a B day. And instead of going block 1, 2, 3, 4, we mix it up. Same classes, but we just mix up the order. Why do we do that? I think one of the reasons is maybe if a student isn't as strong in a subject, maybe science, and they have science block 1 on an A day, maybe they're not as awake as they'd like to be. Maybe they're not as focused. So to make it more fair, we mixed it up. So week 2, they won't have science every A day block 1. It'll be later in the day. It'll actually be block 3, just to kind of make things a little bit more fair. Again, it sounds a little confusing, but once the kids actually start going through the schedule, it'll make sense. I also tell them they're going to make mistakes, and it's going to be okay. They're going to come in and say, I don't know, is it week 1? Is it week 2? Is it A day? Is it B day? 8th graders still ask me that. It's no problem. They'll just either ask a friend, ask a teacher. There's also schedules posted on the bulletin boards. There's also grade level bulletins online that they can look at to help remind them. And I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Moore. She's our Dean of Students to finish this off.
Thank you. Okay, so this has been a lot of information today, but one thing we wanted to end with is, okay, here's what's coming up. That's what's very important right now. So tomorrow, grade 5 will be in here for the assembly. We're going to explain the course selection, get them real excited about coming up to the middle school. Then they're going to get their documents. Again, that window for them to fill out their course selections or select their courses for next year extends all the way till April 16th. So there's plenty of time, but we're going to go ahead and get that process started. In early June, they'll have a step-up day where they'll come up to the middle school and kind of see what it looks like, see some of the teachers, get to talk to some people up here. We will have a grade 6 orientation. That will be in August. And then our first day of school is August 28th.
Sorry, for sharing, it's Wednesday. Is it on purpose?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The first day, 28th of August.
Is on a Wednesday? I'm sorry, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but
Yeah, it is a
yeah.
Wednesday. So I'm just asking if it's on purpose or it's a mistake.
Okay, so what I'm thinking that maybe it should be the 26th of August? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, and then if you need help between now and then, with all those big dates coming up, maybe over the summer you're concerned about something, you come across something. Maybe somebody said school starts on the 28th and it starts on the 26th. Here's an email that you can contact us and we can straighten that out for you. And if you're having any IT issues, maybe you're at the Apple store trying to figure out which MacBook to buy, there's IT information here as well so that everybody is ready to go when school does start. There you go. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm sure that there are many questions, but what questions can we help answer this morning?
Good morning, thank you for the presentation. We're interested to know more about the electives. How many electives can we choose and what exactly the electives are for the semester ones and the twice a year one?
Great, so there are, you have 6 core classes that your child is gonna take, leaving 2 blocks for them to have their electives. So, as it was mentioned before, there are mostly semester electives, so that means they would select 4 electives, right? If they do band, then that's going to be a full year course. And so, like my son, for instance, he's taking band and he's taking Spanish. So those are his 2 electives done. There are some kids that choose, I'm going to take band, but then I want coding and robotics, which is a semester, and then I want to take Innovation and Media, thank you. So then they have 3. So there can be a combination, depending on how long the electives last. Yes.
Just wanted to know what's the difference between beginner, intermediate, and advanced, because our daughter has already been through French for a couple of years, and so which level should she start at?
Great question. Oh yeah, shoot.
I'm a French teacher, actually. I'll answer that one. Though technically beginner would be like 6th grade normally, that they've not had anything, and then intermediate would be the follow-on and advanced. So it doesn't actually correspond to like advanced or fluent. It's just in terms of the number of years they've studied. The only thing I will say at the moment, that's what we have as beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So if your child in 6th grade comes in and takes advanced French as a 6th grader, then they can't take French or Spanish in 7th grade and 8th grade. So it's true, if they have quite a bit of experience, you may want to wait for 6th grade and then join intermediate in 7th grade. So if they do intermediate in 7th, advanced in 8th, and then they can continue a path through to high school, just to put that in the back of your mind. But if you're unsure, you can always send me an email or my colleagues. I can pass it to my colleagues if it's Spanish, for example, and we can go downstairs and just have a chat with the kids and see where their level falls. But if you want them to continue for the 3 years and they don't have a lot of experience, I wouldn't suggest doing like advanced or intermediate in grade 6.
My question is going to be the homeworks. So first of all, are we going to be notified with the homeworks that they're going to take? Second is just, is it going to be the mandatory, or is it going to be optional for them to just to complete? This is the first one. The other one is going to be about Islamic courses. So if my kid is not required to enter the Islamic courses during that time, what they're going to do? Is it going to be covered with the electives, or maybe I missed that part? If you just already explained, but I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, homework can vary. The standard-based grading is based on the formative and summative assessments. However, homework is practice, right? And so there is a time and place for that, because in order for us to be at our best when the time comes for us to show what we know, we need to make sure that we're well practiced and have that experience and working through equations or whatever it may be. So as per communication, they oftentimes will communicate with the students. The planners will also have a lot of that information. And then if you ever have a question, you can kind of reach out to the teacher. But then the formatives and summatives are on a calendar, so you can see when those are coming up as well for parents. So there's that. If your child is not taking Islamic classes, and an Islamic class is paired with an elective, they would just go to their elective and not go to an Islamic class. I don't know if it's unfair. I would say it's even more fair, because we're able to get that Islamic class to them. And French, Islamic would not be paired with French.
But there is one thing. So you get 2 blocks of electives, right? So if your child says, I want to take French, but so they have that option. But then their Islamic would be paired with a different elective for their other one.
So they're taking French and Islamic plus another one.
Yes. So that does exist, because the vast majority of our electives are paired. Yes.
Sorry, Dr. Reynolds, I want to say one other thing. Sorry. It's for homework, a lot of times you're going to find that on Google Classroom, and that's one of the accesses that you'll have. It's probably different from last year, but your child's teachers will post all of the assignments and homeworks and things there, so that's your go-to spot to look for, as well as the planner, but as a backup there.
Yeah, and you'll just have to have your child, I would ask, hey, show me what we're doing in Google Classroom. Let's see that, show that to me, so that way you're having those communications with your child as well.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about the logistics about moving to the new building. Since our kids will be there, will like the Arabic teachers be there? Will the electives? How is it going to work for next year?
It's a great question. So at the moment, we are envisioning all of grade 6 and all of the teachers being there for grade 6, so there won't be back and forth. Our cafeteria should be fully functioning. We should have access to most everything over there. We'll have our own clinic. You don't have to send your kid over here to the clinic. So everything should be self-sufficient. We're in fact hoping that our timeline is bumped up so that we're going to have our grade 7 and 8s join us earlier than expected as well. So yes, we prioritize that because we thought, you know, having band, we don't want to have a grade 6 student over there, then run over here for band, then run back over there. So we're really trying to limit that as much as possible. Certainly having that in place for grade 6, and then like I said, hopefully moving up the timeline for grade 7s and 8s, because there will be some of those logistical challenges for 7 and 8s if that's the case. Yes.
I have a question about lunch 1 and 2.
For people,
Okay. There are 2 lunches. I noticed lunch 1 and lunch 2, which are both 20 minutes. What do the kids do once they've finished their fairly short 20-minute lunch? How is that going to be managed?
Yeah, so for lunches, they have that entire time. However, I think as of right now, the way that we have it is that grade 8, they get in line first because they've been there longest. So that's one of the perk of being in grade 8. And then grade 6 and 7, they're able to get in line then after that. So during that time, some kids just hang out in the cafeteria and then they get in line when the line goes down. There's a time for 6 and 7 on the football pitch, and there's a time for grade 8, and it's usually opposite that lunch. So there is time for them to be outside and run around, unless it's 35 degrees outside, and then we're inside. But yeah, that whole 40 minutes is their time, and then they get to eat lunch within that. When the grade 8 gets through that line, then the 6 and 7s line up, usually around 20, 25.
Yep. So if they bring their lunch, they eat it at any time during that time. They can walk around, do whatever. Sure.
The crew class, do they have all their cores together? So the whole crew class of 15 or 20 kids will move into English together and math together? Is that how it works?
No. So the crew class is going to be the same, obviously, but how they're going to be mixed up into their core classes are going to be different. So that's basically to help us to give students the availability to get as many electives as they can.
Can I have just an add-on question? How many
Kids, what is the maximum number of kids per class? Do you have a gap on that?
Sure. So we're in the mid-20s right now. They're depending because schedules don't always work to plan. Some class sizes can get a little bit higher than that, but we have several classes that are not. So mid-20s, I would say, is our average.
Yeah. So I had a couple of questions. Sorry. So the course selection, are we doing it for just the first semester or the full year? And my next question was, you had mentioned the kids may not get the electives they want. So in which case, do we upfront do a priority 2, 3, or does it just?
Yeah, so we're doing course selections for the entire year. So that's the first answer. And then the priority, the nice thing is we're doing this about, I think, 6 weeks ahead of where we were last year. So that's going to give our counselors some time to work with kids to try to get their preference, as opposed to putting option 1, option 2, option 3 type piece. So again, if there's a case where a kid is struggling to get some electives that align with their preferences, then our counselors will work on that on a case-by-case basis. But that would be very few students.
Yeah, just on that, so that if a student does not get an elective choice, one of their preferences, it'll show as a blank space on their schedule, and then Ms. Christina will have a conversation with your child and say, okay, so you didn't get your preference there, so here's our options here, so which one would you like to do? So we try to work on it that way, so that there is input there from the child if they don't have the opportunity of taking the elective that they have chosen.
How do you mix up the kids for the core classes? What is the criteria for that? Their level?
So it is just basically computer generated. PowerSchool takes kids and they mix it up based on the availability. So if they have their preferences for their electives, PowerSchool will go in and they will fill their math, English electives based on that. So it's really, and then we have a look at those with input, of course, from the grade 5 teachers and the grade 5 team. You know, if there are any, let's say, conflicts with students in a grade, and we say, oh, this person maybe shouldn't be with this person. So those things are then taken into account at that point. So it's not by levels or anything like that.
My question is regarding the transition from iPad to the laptops. How do you expect us, if we give it, say for example, reformatted iPads to the MacBooks to them, how do you prefer? The teachers are going to help them to set it up over here in the classroom, or we should already set it up with their Apple IDs and everything? How's it going to work exactly, and when?
I don't know, Miss Salome, I don't know if they're doing, not to put you on the spot, but I know that there's some sort of transition. They do some keyboard work with computers in grade 5, so it's not completely foreign to them. As far as buying a MacBook, mine came right out of the box. I did set up the Apple ID so that I could do like screen time. I don't know if you guys use screen time, but I have screen time on my kids' computer, so I set up that stuff, but then when it came to Google Classroom, that was all set up here at school. So I basically just kind of did the basic setup at home so I could kind of govern what we needed to govern, and then the school did the rest in crew class.
But this setup is done on the first day of the school, when they start the 6th grade?
Yes, so yeah, it's done, so they'll come in and it's like a, I don't want to say boot camp, but it's a little bit like, here's what you need to do, everybody get out your computers, okay, we're going to set up Google Classroom. How do you do that? And then they walk through step by step on, this is what you need for each of your classes, this is how you communicate, this is how you do this is how you do that on Google Classroom. So yeah, it's the first week, I would say, it's a lot of... Yes, the GEMS account, to access some of those things, that's going to come in the summertime, isn't it? The summertime you'll get login IDs and stuff like that.
And by about the 4th lunch, they pretty much have their whole MacBooks figured out with all their friends. So it's amazing what they can get figured out on their own.
If it's a personal computer, how is the access and what they can access on the computer during school time monitored and safeguarded at school?
Sure, so there are filters that the IT team has in place. So if you go on a Google search and certain sites are flagged, so those are blocked. That's pretty much that portion. But I think at home, it's a lot of some of those protections. However, if you do safe search on your browsers, that would be something that I would recommend. For Chrome is what we use primarily, not Safari. So make sure that that's set up and good to go. But of course, we have those discussions with parents and with kids if they go to a site, if they venture to a site. Usually it's games that we have to say, hey, we're on games all the time. We need to shut it down. So those are the conversations that we do have. We can't block all games. There are some game sites I think that we have been able to block, but there are some of them that we just can't.
I had 2 questions. My first question was, how many kids are going to be in one of the core classes, say math or English? And how are the kids chosen? Depending on their capabilities, or say, for example, one child isn't approaching, another child isn't developing. So is there a mix-up of kids in all kinds of capacities in the class? Or, yeah, I just need more light on that.
Sure. Yeah, so like we said before, it's the average class size is going to be about in the mid-20s. And the classes are heterogeneously mixed, so there's going to be a mix of kids. I think there's a wide swath of research that does show that the kids of varying abilities it's really good for all the kids in the class in those types of settings. So yes, that's primarily what we focus on. Grade 6 and 7. Grade 8 for math is when you start to see a little fork for math. That's when you see IM1, which is a freshman level course, being introduced to grade 8 math. So there's that pathway that's then. But up till then, it's just like your elementary classes would have been now, heterogeneously grouped.
Again, a question regarding the electives. The electives can be continued in years further, like in grade 7, 8, and further on. Like they can be specialized. If they have French, they can continue in French. Coding, they can continue, and at the same time, they can be switched to something else.
Exactly right. Yes. So again, I'm sorry to keep bringing up my son, but like it's the best example that I've got. So he's in band now, and he's in Spanish now. So next year, he's decided that he's going to continue with band. So he's going to have that year-long elective. He's enjoying his Spanish class as well. So he's going to move on to intermediate Spanish next year. If he continues the next year, he'll be in advanced Spanish, and he could continue with band if he wanted to. Same thing if your child chose choir. We have those leveled electives for each and every grade level. You'll just see maybe more opportunities. I think the higher they go up in grades 7 and 8, there are a couple more classes that aren't offered in grade 6.
Hi, just one quick question. How many kids are there in the crew classes?
16 to 18.
Hi.
I was just wondering if there's any impact of the electives on the IB later on.
Another French question. This is the only one I'm really thinking of, right? With modern foreign language.
Yeah, so I think language is the only one that really gets impacted. So if you, and I know it's a lot to think about this, especially as grade 5 parents and grade 6, it's kind of wild to think about it. But if your child has an interest, say, in French, and they take it 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, at the end of 8th grade, the teachers will be looking at the proficiency level and if they've met requirements to continue in high school. So then they're kind of put on a path. Either they go into level 2 or 3, and then they keep going. So ideally, if they study in 6th grade, continue to 7th grade, 8th grade, they'll continue in 9th grade and 10th grade, and at the end of 10th grade can say, I'm ready to do IB in French. As 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, each step of the way, there's going to be a kind of a checkpoint. And then if they get to that point, say 8th grade, 9th grade, they haven't got the level needed, they would have to stop, and then they would not be able to pursue, say, I'm just using French as the example, they couldn't do French as IB, and they would have to switch to Spanish in grade 11. So basically, to keep options open in that case, it's like you want to have a little bit of experience, but maybe not so much. So if they do, say, French in 6th grade, they're like, wow, that was really hard, and I don't love it. You know, they could try 7th grade, and if it's still not working, we recommend that they stop to preserve that option for them in IB in 11th grade. And I know that's a lot to think about from 7th grade to 11th grade, but we also guide parents through that as they're going through it so that it will keep you informed, just so you make informed decisions. But yes, that's the only one where, that's what I'm saying with, you got to be careful kind of about how many years you do to preserve some of those options unless your child is very good. And I will say this, so my apologies if, although you're all 5th grade parents, it should be fine. We have lots of kids who come in from French schools and then they're like, why can't I take French in high school? Because it's actually a second language. It's not supposed to be like a native language, although we do have some students who speak well and speak at home. If you have any questions, you can send me an email and I'm happy to help. And hopefully, I know that was a lot of information, and maybe some of you are more confused than before, and for that I apologize, but just give me a shout and I'm happy to explain it to you on a Zoom call or Meet or whatever, and explain it if that helps.
Follow-up, but basically that's the only concern we need to have.
That's the only one, everything else is fine.
Just the language.
Just
all
language.
the other ones is irrelevant.
Correct.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna put out the specifics in this. So like a lot of us here have mother tongues, and we were talking just about that. So like my son is Portuguese and he's Australian. So like both of these will count as native, right? So have another language and are thinking that if our kids follow the IB program, they will have an advantage by choosing our mother tongue and what sort of languages they, you see the...
Yeah. So the question, if anyone didn't hear, was so it's English and Portuguese.
Yes.
So
that's our specific case.
yes,
I'm
we
sure
don't.
everyone here has.
Yes. I know lots of people. Actually, most of our students, this is their French and Spanish could be their third or their fourth or even their fifth language. So we get it that people are coming from different backgrounds. I mean, we don't teach Portuguese at the school, so it wouldn't, that wouldn't ever interfere with IB. And once you get to IB, there are options for people who have a native language, but they have to be like really, really, really good at it. They would actually be taking IB independently as like a native language. So what we're preparing students for is that it's a second language. So that can also be Arabic, it could be Spanish, it could be French. So if your Portuguese is a great background, if they start in Spanish, they should theoretically be able to continue on up and do IB Spanish as their second language.
But you would recommend starting, it's like for my child, Spanish as a...
We don't have Spanish as a native language, so don't worry.
Then he wouldn't be able to take Spanish in IB if he wanted to choose it.
Sure. Why wouldn't he be able to take Spanish? But it's not Spanish as a native language, it's Spanish as a second language.
Yes.
Well, second. I'm using that in quotes because as you said, you all know it could be third, fourth, fifth. But like that's a second language. Yeah. So if that's not his native language, he takes Spanish all the way through. He'd do Spanish as the B language or the non-native language.
So in that case, you would recommend that he start Spanish now?
If you want to do that, yes, I recommend you start Spanish 6th grade and just follow it on through.
Because then it's easier for them.
Correct. But I fully recognize and tell my students this, some of them just aren't gonna, they just doesn't click, school not the right environment, don't discourage them from learning another language. It can come at another time. There we go. Thank you.
Great, so I hope we've been able to answer the majority of your questions. If you do have any lingering questions, of course, you see us around the auditorium here. We're more than happy to answer any specific questions you have. We are going to be sending that communication out this afternoon. That'll have the letter, the process, this presentation, as well as anything else you might need in the process. And then, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Don't sit lingering on a question. We're happy to help. Okay?
Just one last question. Are we going to receive any links for the more information on electives? Like, for example, what exactly is going to be considered in band, what exactly is going to be considered in art, or something like that?
Yes.
Before we do.
Yes, so it's going to be a course elective handbook, for lack of a better word. So it'll give you an overview of here's band, here's beginner band, and here's intermediate band. What's the difference? It'll just tell you. It'll have a short summary about how they're different. Today. Yep. All right. Thank you all.